The first time I saw the barrel of a gun pointed at me in the middle of a funeral, I didn't flinch, because I'd already buried the only person I was ever afraid to lose, my son. And when I noticed the men in black suits spread out beyond the headstones, I knew they weren't mourners. They were hunters. Hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your city or country. Rain dripped off the edge of the tent, steady, unforgiving. Every time a drop hit the casket, it echoed like a heartbeat I'd never hear again. My hands rested on the folded flag in my lap, fingers tracing the stitches. The silence of a funeral always felt louder than gunfire. Lila stood a few feet away, her black veil hiding most of her face. She hadn't looked at me once. Not when we lowered our boy, not when the priest spoke. Her shoulders trembled, but I couldn't tell if it was grief or something else. Maybe guilt has a way of shivering through the skin. Out of habit, I scanned the tree line. 3 black SUVs, engines still running. Doors closed. Nobody getting out. If they were family or friends, they'd have joined us. But military instincts don't argue. We read patterns before thoughts catch up. The man nearest the oak tree shifted his jacket, revealing a glint of metal. Sidearm, holstered at the ribs. The others were angled for cross coverage. That spacing, that discipline. Not random civilians. Professionals. A chill rolled through my spine that had nothing to do with the rain. The chaplain's voice cracked over the wind. May peace rest with him. Peace. I hadn't felt that word in years, since I'd left the teams and tried to become a husband, then a father. Tried. That's the funny thing about warriors. Some of us survive war, but can't survive sitting still. When it ended, everyone stepped forward with flowers. I held back, watching faces, body language, footsteps. That's when Lila finally came over. Eyes red, breathing shallow. She placed her hand on my arm. Not comfort, just contact. Grant, her voice trembled. Can we leave soon? Please. Sure, I said. The same word I used the night our boy never came home from soccer practice. She turned away too quickly, glancing over her shoulder toward the SUVs. Her body stiffened, then relaxed, almost like waiting for a signal. That was the moment I knew this wasn't random. This was an ambush planned to look merciful. They wanted me off guard, empty, soft. But they forgot one detail: Navy SEALs don't die soft. I stood, brushing water off my coat. The hem of my cane scratched the mud. To anyone else, it was just a veteran's prop. To me, it was an old friend, a carbon steel containment staff with a removable core, a weapon hidden in plain sight. A gust scattered petals and lifted the veil from Lila's face. Her eyes locked with mine, wide, fearful, but not for me. For them. I followed her gaze toward the far car. Door cracked open. A man whispered into an earpiece. My pulse slowed, trained rhythm returning. Adrenaline doesn't race when you've lived in ambushes. It sharpens. The head groundskeeper motioned everyone toward the reception hall. I moved opposite, toward the edge of the graveyard. Mud pulled at my boots, and for an instant, I heard my son's laugh in my head, the sound that once made every deployment worth it. Beneath the awning, 2 strangers smoked in silence, pretending not to notice me. One of them kept his right hand inside his jacket. I stopped 10 feet away. Nice day for a funeral, I said calmly. Rain slid down my face like another layer of war paint. The first man flicked his cigarette. Sorry for your loss. Yeah, I replied, stepping closer. You will be too. The second man's eyes twitched in confusion, but not enough time to speak. I slid the cane tip under his wrist, twisting, knocking the pistol out in a single move. The noise drowned under thunder. The first man reached for his piece, but I already had his friend's weapon angled toward his knee. One shot. Clean, controlled. Before his body hit mud, I dragged the other into cover. My voice stayed level. How many more? He spat, blood mixing with rain. Too late. They'll finish it. You think I'm the target? I leaned closer. You forgot what I used to do for a living. He blinked, realization dawning too late. Ambush, specialist. I pressed the barrel just long enough for him to feel the trigger pressure, then clubbed him unconscious instead. Kills waste information. I needed answers. Back near the tent, family members screamed, shots fired distant across the hill. They'd started the secondary move. I sprinted low along the tombstones, using their alignment to mask angles. My knees protested with every step, reminders of 32 fractures and one unfixable knee. Pain's a motivator if you know its rhythm. Through the gray, I saw Dominic. Yeah, I knew that face now, Lila's accountant friend. He was on the phone, giving commands like a field captain. Around him, 4 men fanned out, rifles under coats. They were closing in on the reception hall. I wanted to take them right there, but civilians inside meant too many variables. Then Lila stepped out the hall doorway and kissed Dominic on the cheek. No fear, just routine. My muscles froze, not from the sight, but from what it confirmed. The enemy hadn't broken in from the outside. They'd been sleeping next to me for years. Dominic whispered something to her, and she nodded once before slipping back inside, brushing past our guests as if nothing was wrong. I crouched behind the memorial wall, breathing through my teeth. My son was dead because his mother couldn't keep her secrets clean. Lightning flashed, illuminating the SUVs, now repositioning. Patterns complete. Roadblock front, sniper overwatch rear hill, assault team at west exit. Textbook kill box. But I designed hundreds of those, and I'd escaped every single one. Rain pounded down hard enough to mask my movement. I crossed to the tree line, retrieved an emergency pack from my truck's false floor, smoke pellets, combat knife, mirror flash. Everything ready for contingencies I swore I'd never use again. As engines revved, I felt something calm settle over me, a soldier's certainty that fear and purpose can coexist. I whispered to the empty grave, "Kiddo, your old man's gonna make this right." Then I pulled the flash mirror, signaling once to the sky. Old SEAL code Mason would understand miles away. The wind carried a faint rumble in response. Far off, deep. Backup on the way. But it wouldn't arrive fast enough for what's coming next, because I'd just heard the faint click of a safety behind me. "Drop it, Grant." Her voice. "Lila." Rain made her mascara look like battle paint. She was shaking, not from cold, but from the truth unraveling between us. I turned slowly, eyes catching hers through the blur of gray air. She held the pistol two-handed, like someone taught by another man. Maybe Dominic. Maybe both. I smiled without humor. "So that's how far you went." She hesitated, lips trembling. "They said you wouldn't suffer, that it'd be clean." "Nothing about us was ever clean, Lila." I stepped 1 inch closer, enough for her to twitch the trigger. Thunder cracked, drowning a gunshot, but not hers. Something behind her windshield exploded in sparks. A bullet sliced through the air from the distant ridge. She ducked in panic. I grabbed her wrist, twisting hard. The gun clattered to mud. Then the shout came from downrange. "Advance now." The mob hit squad moved, and I whispered, steady and cold, "You picked the wrong funeral to come hunting." Rain blurred every shape into movement, but I could still track the rhythm of their steps. Mob shooters weren't soldiers. They moved too heavy, too predictable. I hugged the line of tombstones and counted 3 sets of boots crunching gravel, one hanging back near the SUVs. They didn't know they were walking into a field designed by someone who taught ambush for a living. Lila crawled beside a broken statue, breathing fast. "Grant, they'll kill us, please." Her voice trembled like she finally realized I wasn't just the quiet husband who fixed fences and went fishing. She'd married something built for war, then forgot what she'd built it for. "Keep your head down," I said. A flash of light cracked above us, muzzle fire. Stone chips slapped my cheek. I rolled, brought my cane weapon up, and fired once. The shooter dropped behind a marble angel. Lila screamed, "You shot him." I turned toward her, voice low. "You want both of us dead, keep talking this loud." Her mouth snapped shut. She pressed against the wet ground, shivering. I scanned the ridge again. Movement. Two more closing in, using the trees as staggered cover. Smart, but I'd seen smarter. I reached inside my coat, found the detonator disc no bigger than a coin. Years ago, I designed it to clear enemy corridors. Tonight, it was loyalty testing itself against betrayal. I thumbed the switch. The east floodlights blew out, drenching the graveyard in perfect black. Only lightning showed the silhouettes now, confused, swearing, bumping into one another. I slipped behind them, quiet as breath. One grabbed his radio. "Base, we've lost." My arm locked around his throat before he finished. A quick twist, enough pressure to silence, but not kill. He dropped. The next one saw movement, opened fire, spraying wild. Bullets sparked off headstones. I slid low, swept his knee, disarmed him, then drove the butt of my weapon into his ribs. He fell gasping. Behind me, I heard Lila sobbing. "Grant, stop. They'll see the bodies." "They already know I'm alive," I said, crouching beside the wounded man. "Question is who sent them." He spat rain. "You were supposed to die with the kid." My stomach nodded. "Say that again." He coughed blood. "Message from Dominic. Said the boys saw what he shouldn't. Orders from higher. Clean house." My mind fractured. Half soldier, half father. My son. He'd been in the wrong place because of her secret life. Dominic didn't want witnesses. And Lila let it happen. The man's head fell sideways, unconscious. I stared at him, but all I saw was the reflection of my son's eyes the night he hugged me goodbye. I'd promised him I'd always come back. Now here I was, surviving everything except him. From the far ridge, engines started again. The convoy was repositioning, retreat or regroup. Couldn't tell which yet. Lila crept closer, hair plastered to her face. "Grant, please, we can run. Leave this. I'll help you disappear." "You already disappeared," I said coldly. "Months before the funeral." She shook her head furiously. "I didn't know they'd kill him. Dominic said it was just to scare you. You were looking into things you shouldn't. Navy contracts, money." "What contracts?" "Private shipments, stolen weapons being resold. Dominic used your name, your clearance data from the past. Grant, I was in too deep." I stared at her, raindrops hitting hard between us. I couldn't decide what hurt more, losing the boy or hearing her voice try to justify it. "How long were you working with him?" I asked quietly. Her eyes darted away. 5 months. My jaw tightened. That was exactly how long my son had been gone before his death. Lightning flashed across her face, and for the first time, I saw real terror there. Not for me, but for whatever Dominic might do if she failed. It almost made me pity her. Almost. A faint vibration buzzed in my wristband. Mason's signal. A single pulse, meaning he's on his way. I exhaled through clenched teeth. I wasn't alone anymore, but the pieces were chaos. The gunfire had stopped. The storm's heaviness made even silence loud. Down the slope, one SUV turned its headlights on, another idled behind it. The rear hatch opened. Men dragged something out, a long metal case. Lila whispered, "That's not for a body." I looked closer through the rain and understood. Tripods, not caskets. They were setting up suppressed AR-10s. They wanted this place cleaned fast. No witnesses, no survivors. I grabbed Lila by the arm. "We're moving." She resisted. "Where?" "To the mausoleum. My truck's too far now." We sprinted through the grass, sliding behind stone markers. The stench of wet dirt mixed with the sharp scent of oil and smoke. Every breath burned my throat. A flash behind us. One of the SUVs exploded in sparks. Then I heard Mason's voice over my earpiece, low and steady. "You look older, but still reckless. You okay, brother?" "Define okay," I whispered. "I've got aerial eyes for 4 minutes." Drones up. 2 vehicles left. 6 hostiles moving to flank from east. "I'll adjust." "Copy that. Don't die before I get there." "I'll try not to," I muttered. Lila stared at me. "Who are you talking to?" "Someone who doesn't lie." When we reached the mausoleum steps, I pressed her against the wall. "You're going to stay here until I come back." You can't face them all. You faced them just fine when they paid you. For a second, she stopped breathing. I saw it. The exact moment guilt becomes survival instinct. She didn't love anyone here. She was just trying to live one more hour. She looked down. What if they kill you? They already did, I said quietly. They just forgot to bury me. I turned, raised my weapon again, and stepped into the storm. Beyond the graves, Dominic's voice echoed through a loudspeaker. Mocking, casual. Grant Walker. You should have stayed dead, my friend. I felt a grim smile crease my face. Friend. That word used to mean something. Not anymore. I lifted the small flare from my pocket, flicked it open, and let its red light burn in the dark sky. A silent signal, an invitation. Mason's voice came back softly. Signal received. Starting interference now. The cemetery's edge glowed with the hum of jamming signals. The mob's radios cut out one by one. Panic threads through organized men faster than bullets. In that chaos, I moved like I was 20 again, through smoke, through rain, through memory. Each step another heartbeat toward justice. And somewhere between the thunder, I heard my son's echo, faint but steady. Finish it, Dad. I took cover beside a crumbled crypt, eyes fixed on Dominic's convoy. The funeral had been the bait, but the hunt had just switched hands. The cemetery was still burning behind me when I reached the road. Smoke mixed with fog, the kind only rural towns get after midnight. Mason's truck idled by the tree line, lights off. He leaned against the hood, rifle slung loosely but eyes alert, same old SEAL calm. He didn't ask questions, just pointed his chin toward the flames. I counted 6. You leave any breathing. 1, I said. Long enough to talk. Good. We'll need him. We worked in silence, the kind that used to mean trust. But I kept watching him out of habit. After years in the field, you can tell when a man hides something. It sits in his breathing rhythm, not his words. Still, tonight wasn't the time for doubts. Where's Lila? He asked finally. Somewhere between guilty and terrified. I wiped rain off my face, started loading magazines from the gear bag. Dominic used my sonar records. Weapon deals. Somehow she's tied to it. Mason cursed under his breath. Figures. These contracts pay better than patriotism. I looked at him sharply. She said they planned my son's death. Called it an accident to cover a loose end. Mason stopped moving for a moment, jaw flexing. Then you know exactly what to do. I will. I slammed the tailgate shut. We drove into town, road slick, lights reflecting like broken glass. Lila's phone signal pinged near the old dockyard. She hadn't gone home. Of course not. You don't run toward the house when you're scared of the man who knows what you did. At the pier, only one warehouse still had power. A black Mercedes waited outside, engine running. I killed the headlights 2 blocks away. She's inside. Mason asked. Yeah, I said quietly. With him. I stepped out, the cold air biting through my soaked clothes. The water smelled of diesel and salt. Every piece of this place screamed memory. Training nights overseas, ambush drills, the echo of boots on wet metal. I eased closer, past stacked crates, until a board-covered window gave me a line of sight. Inside, Dominic stood beside Lila. He looked calm, expensive, untouchable. I told you he wouldn't stop, Dominic said. That's what they breed in their precious SEAL units. Obedience to a cause even after the cause is gone. Lila rubbed her sleeve across her face. He still thinks I loved him. Dominic smiled, gentle like a shark. Then keep letting him think that. We move shipments tonight. Once I have the codes, you vanish. Witness protection won't find us if the Navy erases its own records. She looked sick, like even betrayal had limits. What about his friend? The one you said was quiet backup. Dominic shrugged. We'll handle him too. That was all I needed. I slipped back to Mason, heart pounding from cold more than shock. They're leaving. 10 minutes. He loaded another clip. Then step aside and let's finish it. Not yet, I said sharply. No civilian crossfire. And I want her alive till I know everything. He nodded, but something flashed in his eyes, too casual. I stored that in memory and moved. We breached from opposite doors. Noise turned to chaos in under 2 seconds. Dominic drew first. Mason returned fire, clean, deliberate. Bullets tore through crates and ricocheted off girders. I moved toward Lila, catching her wrist before she reached her pistol. Still good at lying, I said. Her mascara streaked again. Grant, please, listen, Dominic made me. Save it. Dominic's scream cut her off. I turned. Mason stood over him, muzzle pressed to his collarbone. You two were planning this shipment with Navy tags, huh? Mason asked, too calm. Where's the data drive? Dominic laughed weakly. You mean your drive, soldier? The words froze the air. I looked between them. Mason didn't move, but the silence screamed confession. Mason, I said quietly. He finally met my eyes. They approached me first. They wanted clearance data. I figured I could leak redacted files, make a little side cash. Until they killed your kid. That wasn't part of the deal. Lila stared at him, shocked. You, shut up, I muttered. Dominic smirked, blood running from his shoulder. See, Walker? Loyalty's a word you hear in uniforms. Money, that's forever. I felt a century of anger settle behind my heartbeat. But anger doesn't win fights. Control does. So I said nothing. I simply looked at Mason. In this, I ordered. He hesitated, then twisted his weapon down and grazed Dominic's leg instead of killing him. A warning. He's all yours. While Mason covered the door, I knelt by Dominic. You took my son because he saw something he shouldn't. What exactly did he see? Dominic coughed. He saw your wife passing me the codes. In your house. Lila gasped, hand over her mouth. I didn't turn to look at her. My eyes stayed on Dominic's. Then you know what's next. He whispered, you'll never get far. The others will come. Let them, I whispered back. I stood and pulled Lila upright by the sleeve. You're coming with me. No, she sobbed. I swear, if you hand me over, they'll kill me. Maybe, I said. Or maybe you'll finally tell the truth before they can. We moved toward the exit, Mason trailing behind. I could feel the tension slicing the air. 3 people bound by guilt, survival, and something darker. Outside, wind ripped the tarp from a crate, revealing rows of military serial weapons, stolen gear. My son had found this before his death. Proof enough. I turned to Mason. We clean all of it. Every trace. He nodded. Burn or record? Both. We dragged Dominic outside, zip-tied him to the SUV bumper. He screamed when the tires spun mud against his wounds, but his noise faded behind the rain. Lila stood by the docks, arms crossed over herself, trembling. You're not leaving yet, I said. Where would I go? She whispered. Anywhere that isn't near me. Mason finished pouring fuel on the crates. The flames hissed at first, then roared alive, reflected in the water like another world burning beneath the surface. For the first time since the funeral, I exhaled. Not peace, just oxygen returning to the lungs of a dead man. Mason walked beside me, face lit orange. This isn't over, Grant. Dominic wasn't lying about others coming. I know. And before they do, I want to know every name tied to these shipments. You'll need help. I've got enough. He looked at me for a second longer, then nodded. Then we moved tonight. Behind us, wood cracked, metal popped, and the warehouse collapsed inward on itself. Lila watched it all, silent. The woman I married was gone. What stood there now was just someone wearing her face. We rode through the back roads in silence, the smell of burning oil still in our clothes. Every few miles, Mason's phone buzzed with encrypted signals from contacts we once trusted. None of them were safe now. Betrayal spreads faster than shrapnel once the right people pay for it. I stared out the window at the endless dark. They'll come for the cleanup crew first. Anyone who knows about those shipments. Mason adjusted the rear view. Then we find the names before they find us. His tone was steady, but I caught the way his thumb twitched against the steering wheel. The same tell he had before a firefight. Something gnawed at him. I stored that detail away. Trust is inventory. You measure how much you can lose before the mission collapses. We reached an abandoned service hangar outside the city, one of our old drop sites. Inside still smelled of rust and dust. Floodlight beams sliced through the haze like memories I didn't want. I set Lila on a metal chair in the middle of the floor and tied her wrists, not roughly, just enough so she wouldn't run when her guilt caught up. "You don't need to do this," she whispered. "The evidence burned." "Exactly," I said, "so now it lives in you." Mason moved around the room, sweeping his tablet over the walls. "EMP shields intact. Nobody's tracing signals from here." I nodded. "Start pulling the shipment logs from the flash drive you took off Dominic." He froze for only an instant, but it was enough. "How'd you?" "You pocketed it while we bagged him," I said. "You're good, Mason, but I taught you half your tricks. You think I wouldn't notice?" He exhaled through his nose and handed me the drive. "You're losing your trust issues again." I never lost them. The drive held 3 years' worth of coded manifests, all under fake defense contracts tied to our old unit. Every page linked to a shell company, and every shell led back to a single name. Preston Hale, former commander, now corporate consultant. Mason muttered, "That explains everything." Preston trained Dominic's cousin back in Jordan. "This runs higher than we thought." I scrolled further. My son's school name appeared on a transaction list dated 2 days before his death. I stopped breathing for a second. "What's that?" Mason asked. "He found the wrong file," I said quietly. Schools were cover points for rerouting supply trucks. He must have seen the exchange and traced it here. They couldn't risk public exposure. Lila's voice broke through the silence. "Grant, I didn't know. I only passed encrypted cards, that's all. Dominic told me they were secure communications, not weapons manifests." "Then you were still the courier." I looked at her. That's all the mob needed. She started crying silently. It didn't move me, but the sound cracked something old inside. Grief doesn't always come out as tears. Sometimes it's just breathing you can't control. Mason studied her like a chess piece. She could still help. Preston's based near the docks, right? She might get us inside his logistics hub. She's not stepping anywhere near them, I said. Then how do you plan to get through 3 armed warehouses? The same way I taught recruits. Make the enemy look inward first. He frowned. Ghost protocol? Exactly. I pulled a weathered notebook from my duffel. In blue ink, every step of that strategy was detailed. How to bleed a network from the inside by letting paranoia spread until they start purging themselves. The best ambush happens when the target feels cornered before a shot is fired. Mason smirked faintly. Didn't think you'd ever use that again. I wasn't planning to, I said. But then they took my boy. By morning, the storm had passed. Gray light crept through shattered windows. I poured black coffee while Mason updated coordinates. Lila hadn't slept, eyes swollen, fingers shaking against the rope knot. She finally spoke. Preston's men will track Dominic's phone. They'll realize you have it. Soon as they do, this place is a target. That's why we'll move first, I replied. Where? She asked. To the Port Authority network. That's where Preston hides his data. Mason tossed me a small case. Still got that field transmitter? Always. We drove again before dawn, leaving tire lines through puddles like trails of ghosts. My reflection in the side mirror looked older, harder. That's what revenge does. It replaces the man who promised to protect with one who just calculates outcomes. When we reached the port, the air felt heavier. Huge cranes towered like skeletons, ships moored in fog. We slipped past security in borrowed vests, blending with the maintenance crew. The digital ID Mason coded worked. Nobody questioned the veterans doing inspection. Inside the office block, rows of computers hummed. I uploaded a virus that mirrored their manifests onto international servers. Once released, every corrupt transaction tied to military black markets would be public. No escape routes left. While the progress bar crawled, I heard footsteps. 2 guards. Mason moved first. Non-lethal takedown, Quick, silent. I returned to the monitor, watching the data leak complete. Then an unexpected folder opened itself. A recorded file, Project Phantom, authorization, M. Caldwell. Mason's full name. I froze. The screen scrolled with his signatures across approval lines for prototype weapons, the same serial numbers we found at the dock. My hand tightened around the mouse. You're in every file. He didn't answer immediately. Grant, listen, how deep are you in this? He set down his gun slowly. We all got tired after the wars ended. No pensions, no backing. Preston offered contracts. I thought it kept our skills alive. But Dominic twisted it, used my clearance. I've been trying to shut it down from inside. Then why hide the drive? Because trust doesn't come cheap between ghosts. Alarms cut our argument short. Screens flashed red, intrusion alert. Preston's men were faster than we thought. Time to go, Mason shouted. We sprinted down the corridor as red lights pulsed. Lila grabbed my arm mid-run. You saw his name, didn't you? You can't trust him. I don't have to, I said. I just need him until we're out. Explosions shook the floor one level above, their version of containment. Smoke filled the hall. Mason covered the stairwell while I secured Lila. My lungs burned from ash and anger both. We burst through a side exit into open air, dove behind a shipping container. Sirens wailed closer. Mason keyed a small detonator, blowing our entry point to erase traces. The blast threw dust into the water and painted the dawn orange. For a moment, the silence afterward felt endless. Lila coughed. What now? Now, I said quietly. We turned the ghost into bait. She frowned. What do you mean? I looked at Mason. Preston thinks he's controlling Project Phantom. He doesn't realize the real Phantom is standing next to me. Time to let him believe Mason switched sides. Mason met my gaze. You sure about this? No, I said. But that's why it'll work. We walked along the pier, the sun breaking through clouds, lighting the smoke into gold. Behind us, the port burned, a signal to every enemy watching. The ghosts of their crimes were awake now, and none of them were safe. The pier burned behind us all night, turning the horizon orange. Every spark reminded me of the promise I made at my son's grave. No peace until every hand responsible was accounted for. By dawn, the smoke had drifted out to sea, leaving the world gray again. We were holed up in an abandoned ranger cabin 2 miles inland. No power, no noise. Only rain on the tin roof and the whisper of rot old wood breathing under much weight. Lila sat by the single window, wrapped in a blanket, silent and staring. Mason cleaned his rifle on the table like it was therapy, not preparation. I had maps spread out before me, marking coordinates, old safe houses, known drop zones. Revenge wasn't enough anymore. This was procedure. Mason finally spoke. Preston will regroup by morning. He'll send new buyers to finish the contracts. If we're going to strike, it's now or never. I folded the map along clean lines, the motion automatic. Then we move at night. Fewer witnesses. Lila turned. And what happens to me? You stay out of the way, I said, not lifting my eyes. I helped you, she insisted. I told you where their files were. You helped clean your own conscience. I cut in. That's not the same thing. She flinched, but didn't speak again. For a few minutes, only the sound of Mason's rag sliding against metal filled the room. Then he asked, what's the plan? I make Preston think you flipped again. You'll reach out through his encrypted channel. Tell him you've neutralized me and have proof. He looked up slowly. And when he takes the bait, then we close the door. Lila's eyes widened. This is suicide. You'll both die. I stared at her. For me, death stopped being scary the day they took my boy. I walked outside before either could answer. Cold air slashed against my skin. The forest smelled of wet pine and gun oil. Somewhere far off, thunder rolled but didn't flash. Distant artillery from a storm still deciding whether to come. That sound had followed me from deployments. It felt like memory breathing behind every tree. I sat on the steps, pulled out the small photo I kept folded inside my wallet. My son in his baseball uniform, missing teeth, grinned too bright for this world. I rubbed the crease across his face where my thumb had worn the paper thin. The kind of ache you never train out. Mason came out quietly, settled on the opposite step. You still carry it, huh? Always. He lit a cigarette, took a long drag, and let the smoke drift. I never had kids. Probably for the best. I glanced at him. Then you'll never understand why some ghosts can't rest. Maybe not. He exhaled again. But I get what it's like living with orders you stop believing in. Preston used that. He told us we'd be saving the country's black budget, keeping things under control. Truth is, he just learned we still followed commands if they sounded enough like purpose. That's what makes monsters, I said. He chuckled darkly. You planning to kill him clean or make it poetic? Depends on how much blood he's got left to spill. A branch cracked somewhere in the trees. Both of us froze, reflex pulling us forward. Mason flicked the light off, eyes narrowing. I slipped my sidearm free, scanning the line. 2 faint flashes, not muzzle, but signal. Someone out there knew the old SEAL codes. I crouched. Friend or recon? Could be both, Mason replied. I set the comm earlier. Maybe Preston scouts tracked the signal. Then our timing just moved up. We moved inside, snapping into routine. Gear load, weapon check, silence. Lila watched us, eyes darting. You can't go now. They'll expect you. That's the point, I said. She stood. Grant, listen, please. I told Dominic everything because I thought you were gone. I was weak, yes, but I never wanted this. Let me help fix it. You want to help? I said. Stay alive long enough to testify when it's over. Her lip quivered. And if you don't come back, then you tell the world what really happened. I tightened my vest. You owe him that much. We left before the sky cleared, heading toward the ridge overlooking the shipyard. The same terrain where Preston's convoy would cross before sunrise. Mason adjusted his earpiece. Transmission active. Preston bought it. He thinks I finished you off. He wants a face-to-face at the storage field. Perfect, I said. He just booked his own burial ground. We reached the overlook an hour later. The world below shimmered with wet asphalt and fog. Headlights cut through in slow patrol arcs. We split positions. Mason stayed near the road, transmitting false updates while I crawled through brush to the storage yard. Every movement was muscle memory. Slide, pause, breath, check corners. Wrong step, you die? Wrong hesitation, someone else does. Through binoculars, I saw Preston's SUV rolling in. 2 jeeps behind it, half a dozen guards. Mercenaries, not mob now. The money had shifted from crime to contracting. Cleaner that way, legally dirtier underneath. I whispered into the comm. Remember, you sell the act till I call Falcon Red. Mason's reply came clear. Copy that. My finger traced the edge of the detonator clipped inside my glove, a line of C4 shaped under the steel walkway. 1 push, 1 pulse, burial by architecture. Ghost protocol complete. The vehicle stopped. Preston stepped out wearing a navy coat, sunglasses even at night. When you spend years hiding crimes, darkness becomes your comfort. His voice carried across the yard. Sergeant Caldwell, he called to Mason. I'm impressed. You finally chose right. Where's Walker? Mason raised his hands. Handle like you asked. But there's a problem. Preston's tone hardened. Problem. He recorded everything. There's a virus out there copying our files. I watched from 20 meters away as Preston's composure cracked for half a heartbeat. Then he laughed softly. You think I didn't plan for loose ends? He nodded toward the jeep. 2 men dragged someone out of the back. Lila. Hands bound, bruised. My stomach clenched. She must have tried following. Caught her near your cabin. Preston said. Seems everyone betrays someone eventually. Mason shifted slightly. Let her go. She doesn't matter. Everyone matters when they bury evidence, Preston replied. Then he pulled a pistol, set it against her temple. This ensures cooperation. The noise inside my skull stopped being thought. It was instinct. I pressed the trigger on my detonator. The ground erupted, steel plates folding upward, sparks slicing the dark. Mason dove aside just as the walkway collapsed, taking 2 guards with it. Preston tumbled to the ground, gun skidding. I sprinted forward, grabbed Lila, cut her wrist ties. She gasped but followed my pull toward cover. Behind us, Mason fired controlled bursts, dropping 3 men before they could recover. Preston scrambled for his weapon, but I reached him first, boot pressing down on his wrist. "Still think you planned for loose ends?" I said. He glared up at me, face streaked with mud. "You don't get it, Walker. Take me down and 10 more step in. You can't kill an idea." "Maybe not," I said, "but I can bury the man who sold it." Sirens wailed in the distance. Local police or federal cleanup, maybe both. I turned to Mason. "We're out of time." He nodded, lunged for the truck keys. I looked down at Preston one last time. "This is for him." The butt of my rifle cracked across his jaw, leaving him unconscious. We left him breathing, because tonight wasn't about execution, it was about exposure. We sped away as the explosions died behind us. On the ridge, dawn bled into sky again, pale and cold. Lila said nothing. Mason stared straight ahead, knuckles white on the wheel. I leaned my head back against the window, whispering to no one. It ends tomorrow. The sun never really rose that morning. It just pushed gray light through the smoke. We didn't talk during the drive. Every minute felt carved from glass, sharp, ready to break. Preston was alive, but his men would regroup fast. I needed to end it before nightfall. Mason parked near the quarry route leading back to the port. "Same convoys heading for extraction," he said. "They'll bring a replacement lead. We intercept here." "How many?" I asked. 8, maybe 9. "Good. Keeps my math simple." Lila sat in the back seat, wrapped in her coat. "You can't take 9 armed men alone." "I'm not alone," I said quietly. "I've got ghosts watching." She looked away, maybe understanding that I meant my son. Maybe not. It didn't matter. I'd already buried everything soft in me. Mason popped the trunk, revealing 2 duffel bags, smoke canisters, flash rounds, rope, rifles. Everything legal to anyone untrained. Everything deadly to someone like me. 3 choke points, I said, spreading a quick sketch across the hood. "I'll trigger step 1 uphill. When they stop, you hit transmissions with the jammer." He nodded. "And stage 2. Stage 2 is what they won't see coming." We worked fast. Old habits fell back into rhythm. Every sound, every second, carried purpose. We planted canisters along the cliff road, using mud to hide trip sensors. I moved low between rocks, the same way I used to breach compounds halfway across the world. Back then it was orders. Now it was choice. By midday, the plan was set. We waited in a narrow gully above the route. Tree shadows thick, air damp. Dust rose far off. The convoy. Lila whispered, "Why not run instead?" I met her eyes. Running's for people expecting forgiveness. She didn't answer. The wind shifted, diesel fumes, metal clatter. Target in sight. I pressed the detonator. A plume of smoke curled across the road. The lead truck braked hard, others behind jerking out of formation. Within seconds, the smoke filled the valley. Confusion. Exactly what I needed. Mason's voice came through my earpiece. "Signal blackout, done." I rose from cover, rifle tied against my shoulder. 2 shots, front tires, rear driver. Trucks locked in place. Shouts rose, echoing off stone. They scrambled for cover, firing wild into fog they couldn't read. I moved across the ridge, calculating angles, every step deliberate. Below, Mason cut left, looping behind the 3rd vehicle. 1 guard spotted him. A burst of rounds sparked against the metal frame. Mason dove, rolled, and returned fire. Down went the shooter. I slid downhill, drifted through the haze. 1 heartbeat, 1 breath, 2 more down. Quick, efficient. They weren't trained for silence. Every scream gave me distance. Then a voice behind me. "Drop it." I froze. Turned slow. Lila stood 10 feet away, small pistol trembling in her hands. Rain streaked her face again. "Don't do this," I said. "You can't kill all of them. This isn't killing. This is ending." "They'll come for me," she cried. "They'll come if you fail. And if I don't fail?" Her grip trembled. "Then you kill Preston, and the rest replace him." "It doesn't stop." I stepped forward. "It stops when people like you stop feeding them." She lowered the gun slightly. Maybe it was the look in my eyes or the noise, but she paused long enough for a voice to erupt from Mason's calm frequency. "Grant, we've got company. Chopper inbound." I turned. Through the clearing smoke, a helicopter hovered low, rotor wash scattering dust. Machine gun barrel swung toward the convoy. "Reinforcements." "Mason, get down." The gun roared, shredding metal and bark. I yanked Lila behind cover as debris rained down. The sound tore the ground apart, but the rotor dipped, pilot adjusting for line of sight. I grabbed a flare from my pack, lit it, and hurled it toward the smoke plumes. Red light flared, disorienting the thermal sight for a split second. That's all I needed. I sprinted out, grabbed the fallen guard's launcher, aimed high, and fired. The missile hit the helicopter's tail boom with a white-hot crack. The craft spun, spiraling sideways, vanishing behind the ridge in a blast that flattened the brush line. When the echo faded, only the hiss of burning metal filled the air. Mason limped from cover, one sleeve ripped, blood on his hand. "You still make things look easy," he said. "Just old reflex," I replied. "You hurt?" Side graze. Nothing new. Lila stood shaky, staring at the wreckage. "You killed all of them." "Not all," I said. "Preston's still out there. And whoever bankrolled him." Mason picked up a half-destroyed tablet from one of the trucks, wiping soot from the screen. "There's a live data feed here. Preston's last orders. Meet point marked Haven." "Where?" I asked. "An abandoned courthouse north of the city. Looks like he's transferring leadership tonight." "Then that's where we end it." Lila grabbed my sleeve weakly. "If you go there, he'll have a full unit waiting." "I hope so. I'm tired of half measures." Her eyes softened, like she wanted to reach for the man I used to be. But war erases faces long before bullets start. I pulled away gently and met Mason's eyes. "Gather what we can, burn the rest." We set the charges. The last of the smoke thickened above us, black against silver sky. When the final truck went up, the explosion rolled down the valley like thunder announcing closure. At the crest, I turned back once. Rows of burning vehicles mirrored coffins under sunlight. For a breath, I saw my son's reflection in the fire, proud, small, fearless. Then it was gone. Mason started the engine. Lila climbed in without looking at me. I watched the flames another second before joining them. Next stop, the courthouse. Next move, the truth, no matter the cost. The courthouse sat half-collapsed on the edge of town, windows shattered, walls eaten by vines. A place built for judgment and long forgotten by it. Perfect for what had to happen. We parked 3 blocks away. Mason scanned the ridge with binoculars. 3 trucks out front, guards on rotation. Preston's inside, no question. I checked my weapon, chamber round smooth. "You ready?" He nodded. "Always." Behind us, Lila whispered, "You don't need to do this here. It's a trap." I looked over my shoulder. I came to set the trap, not walk into it. The rain started again, soft drizzle, enough to muffle steps. We moved through alleyways, using collapsed storefronts as cover. The plan was simple. Mason cuts power from the old transformer, draws attention to the rear. I go in through the west hall. Clean, fast, quiet. It almost worked. Inside smelled of mildew and iron. Walls peeled like old skin. My boots left ghost prints on the marble floor. Voices echoed from the main chamber. Preston's calm drawl, and someone crying under it. Female. Every sound sharpened as I drew closer. "Please," a woman begged. "He'll find you. He's different." I froze. It was Lila's voice. My blood iced. I turned, realized the voice came from the intercom, recorded, not live. Preston was broadcasting it through the hall. He wanted me to hear her fear. He spoke next, smooth, mocking. Do men like you ever wonder what drives loyalty, Grant? Because I do. Pain drives it, guilt feeds it. Like your wife's. I felt anger climb my chest, steady, not wild. Controlled, the kind that lets you aim better. Through the half-shut door, I saw him seated behind a desk, suit pressed, bandage under his jaw from the last encounter. Two men flanked him with rifles ready. He smiled when I stepped into the doorway. I wondered how long the storm would keep you. Come in, son of America. I leveled the barrel on him. You're done, Preston. Done. He laughed once. No, you've just upgraded me. Every live feed we've run since you burned the convoy is already tracing back to your name. You'll be the ghost story they use to justify another black unit. Not if you don't live to finish it. He tilted his head. That's just it. I don't need to live. Ideas don't bleed. Before I could fire, a voice behind me said, Drop it. Mason. I turned slowly, disbelief sharper than fear. His gun was raised, pointed straight at me. Put it down, Grant. You're really doing this? I asked. I told you there was more to this. Preston's been running contingency out of D.C. If he dies, every archive goes public. Thousands of operatives exposed. We stopped that by keeping him breathing. He killed my son. And if you kill him, others use it as an excuse to build another project. We in nothing. Behind Mason, Lila stepped out of the shadows, eyes swollen, pistol in her shaking hand. He's lying, Grant. Mason's covering his own tracks. Preston chuckled. This is entertaining. The modern family, betrayal, bullets, and bad communication. Mason barked, Shut up. Lila inched closer. Grant, don't trust him. He's not who you think. My gun stayed steady, switching aim between both of them. Then who exactly am I supposed to believe? Her answer came out in a whisper. Me. Because I'm the reason our son found the truth. Everything stopped moving inside me for a moment. What did you just say? I asked. Tears rolled down her face. I couldn't live with what I'd done. I told him where the files were. I thought if he showed you, maybe you'd forgive me. I heard my pulse louder than her words. You told him? You gave him the location? She nodded slowly. Dominic wasn't supposed to be there that day. Preston sent men early. He was just a kid trying to help his mother make things right. It hit harder than any explosion. My son died trying to save us. Mason's expression shifted. Pain, guilt, then resolve. She's right, he murmured. Preston ordered the early pickup. Preston smiled again. No one orders perfection like me. That was his last sentence. Mason turned and shot him through the heart. The echo cracked the hall wide open. Preston fell back, blood blooming through his shirt. One clean shot, no grand gestures. For a second, nobody moved. Lila sobbed softly. The two guards froze, unsure, then dropped their rifles and ran. I stared at Mason. Why now? He didn't lower the gun. Because if anyone kills him, it has to look sanctioned. The files detailing his operation vanish with me. What are you talking about? He set the pistol down on the desk, sliding it toward me. Backup units will be here in 5 minutes. They'll find one dead asset, one broken officer, and a woman who can testify. They won't chase you if they think you're gone. Mason, no. He gave a faint, tired smile. We all pay, brother. Some with guilt, some with silence. He tapped a small detonator clip to his belt. Tell your son I kept my promise. The blast ripped through the chamber. I threw myself over Lila as the ceiling came down. Dust, flame, a roar that swallowed screams. When the world steadied, only echo remained. I dragged Lila outside into the rain, coughing, covered in ash. Where the courthouse had stood was a smoking pit. She stared at it, whispering through tears, Why did he do that? Because he believed in ghosts too, I said quietly. Sirens wailed in the distance. Time to vanish before rescue turned into arrest. We stumbled down the hill toward the outer road. Lila clutched my arm, voice trembling. You can stop now. Please. I looked back at the fire still hungry behind us. It won't stop until those files surface, I said. And Mason gave me the key. I pulled a small data chip from my vest pocket. Half burned, still glowing faint blue. His last move. Lila's eyes widened. He meant you to have it. Yeah, I said. And when the world sees what's on it, Preston's idea dies for good. Rain drummed harder, washing soot away. My pulse slowed, but the anger stayed, cold and controlled. You asked me once what happens after justice, I said softly. She nodded. I tightened my fist around the chip. Now we find out. We drove until the sirens became echoes, then found an abandoned motel off the highway. A single row of rooms overrun by vines and dust. I parked behind the lot where no road lights reached. Lila followed me inside, silent, pale, still shaking from the blast. The room smelled of damp carpet and cigarettes. I set the lamp down, placed Mason's data chip on the table. It flickered faint blue through the cracks, still alive. He left it for you, Lila murmured. He left it for truth, I said. I slotted it into my field tablet. The screen filled with half-corrupted files, ship manifests, transfer orders, coordinates across oceans. Thousands of weapons missing from official records, all retagged under fake humanitarian supplies. But one name appeared more than any, Caldwell Initiative. Mason's shadow project continued long after he tried to stop it. Lila sank onto the bed. Can we send it to someone? Not yet. I scrolled deeper. A folder labeled Witness Removal opened on its own. Inside were photos. My son. My property. Surveillance from months before his death. And then one image that locked my breath. Lila, meeting with Preston and a man I didn't recognize. Only a partial face, badge clipped to his belt. I zoomed the frame. The badge read, Office of Domestic Operations. This isn't just mob. It's government, I said flatly. Lila's eyes went wide. Grant, if you release those files, they'll kill anyone connected to them, including me. Then we vanish before they can. A hard knock hit the door before I finished the sentence. 3 measured strikes. Professional, not nervous. I froze, motioning her silent. Another knock, slower this time. I crept toward the window. 2 men outside, black jackets, idling sedan behind them. No police markings. Lila whispered, They found us. I clicked the tablet off, tucked the chip into my vest. Stay behind me. The first man spoke through the door. Mr. Walker, we're not here to hurt you. We need to talk about Mason Caldwell. The sound of his voice carried that bureaucratic calm that soldiers learn to despise. Tone that pretends empathy while measuring threat. Step away from the door, I called. All right. Silence. Then boots shifting on gravel. You're in possession of information classified under Section 19. That data chip is property of the Department of Defense. Hand it over, and this ends clean. Lila looked at me, terrified. I whispered, There's no clean end. She mouthed, Run. I shook my head and cut for the back exit. We moved fast. Side door opened before the men circled. A flashlight beam sliced the darkness behind us. Gunfire followed, controlled bursts meant to hit near, not kill yet. They wanted me alive. We sprinted across the empty lot to an old maintenance shed. Inside, I kicked open a panel to the crawlspace. We dropped down into cold soil and raced through the drainage tunnel leading toward the woods. It felt like war zones again, narrow, damp, breathing through memory. I kept one hand on her back, pushing her forward as their footsteps echoed above. When we reached open forest, the red glow of their flashlights danced across the tree line, sweeping closer. I whispered, Keep moving west. Where are we going? Somewhere they won't follow. An hour later, we reached a clearing, the ruins of an old radio bunker from training years ago. I forced the door open, cleared the dust from the console, and plugged the chip into the backup server, still humming quietly on emergency current. The files loaded faster here. Deeper archives unlocked, revealing one last video log. Mason again, recorded days before the courthouse explosion. His voice shook, but remained steady where it mattered. Grant, if you're watching this, You found the truth. Preston was never the head. The Caldwell Initiative is funded through a private contract labeled Haven. The architect, Deputy Director Victor Ransom. I left evidence tied to his offshore accounts. Release it, and the entire chain burns. But be ready. They'll erase you first. The video ended. My own pulse filled the silence. Victor Ransom. The unknown badge in the photograph. The man behind the operation that stole my son's life and turned soldiers into commodities. Lila stepped back, covering her mouth. You can't fight that. He runs internal operations. They'll track every signal. They'll try. I copied data to multiple encrypted drives. Old SEAL tactics using scrambled radio bands. We leak it in fragments across different servers. Once the public pieces it together, it's too late for deletion. She hesitated. Grant, after all this, what then? Then we stopped being ghosts. Footsteps crunched outside again, multiple, closer. My sensors read movement. 5 signatures surrounding the bunker. They're faster than expected, I muttered. Lila gripped my arm. If they catch us, they won't. I killed the lights. Darkness swallowed everything but the faint blue from the chip. The first faint hiss from the steel door came. A cutting torch. Time nearly gone. I whispered, when it blows, run north through the ridge. Don't stop. She shook her head violently. Not without you. You won't have a choice. I grabbed my last flash charge, set it beside the entrance. Sparks dripped through the lock. The door slid open, and I triggered the flare. White heat filled the room. The agents stumbled, blinded. I pulled Lila through the back breach, sprinting uphill toward the trees as the bunker erupted behind us. We dropped beneath a fallen trunk, breath colliding with rain. Voices shouted, flashlights sweeping again. I kept still until their beams faded down the slope. Lila pressed her forehead against my shoulder, sobbing quietly. We can't keep running forever. I don't plan to. The data chip glowed faint in my hand again, its edges cracked by heat, but core intact. Mason's final words echoed in my head. Release it, and the entire chain burns. I looked toward the horizon where dawn barely touched the sky. Next stop's DC, I said. Time to finish what he started. By the time we reached the city limits, the rain had stopped, but nothing felt clean. The clouds hung low, heavy like they knew what was coming. Lila sat beside me, eyes hollow, hands gripping the edge of her seat as the skyline appeared through gray mist. She asked softly, "Why here, Grant? Why come back?" "Because that's where it started," I said, "and where it ends." The cemetery lay ahead, same road, same wind through broken trees. It looked smaller now, but maybe that was memory shrinking the past to survive it. My son's grave rested at the far end by the oak line. That oak had witnessed everything. The funeral, the ambush, the first time I buried my humanity. I parked the truck behind the caretaker's shed and stepped out. The air tasted like iron. Lila followed, arms wrapped around herself. "You think Ransom will come alone?" she asked. "No," I said. "Men like him never do. They send soldiers to hide their fear." I walked across the field, studying the angles, the ridges, the low points, the open patches where the soil had sunk from old graves. You learn to see geography like chess. Even ghosts have tactics. Mason's chip, now half-burned, hung from a cord around my neck. I touched it once. It pulsed faintly, carrying every secret still unreleased. Tonight, I'd use it as bait. We worked quietly. Lila set motion sensors along the path near the west gate, mimicking the patterns the mob once used. I rigged charges under overturned stones, small directional flash bursts, not lethal, just enough to disorient. This battle wasn't about body count. It was about truth hitting daylight before anything else. By dusk, the first drone appeared, tiny speck cutting across clouds, scanning the lot. I smiled without humor. They found us. Lila's voice broke. We could still drive away. And let my son's killer bury it again? No. I knelt by his gravestone, wiping rainwater from his name. "You'll see this through, kid," I whispered. Even if it kills me. Headlights flared through the gates. Engines, 3 SUVs rolling slow, smooth, confident. The kind of entrance built on authority. When the men poured out, they moved with training. Covert ops, not mob muscle. Then a fourth vehicle stopped beside the others, door opening with a crisp click. Victor Ransom stepped out, trim suit, gray hair, face that would look fatherly if you didn't know the rot behind his eyes. He scanned the field like it was already his. "Grant Walker," he called, voice even. "You make it hard for people to forget you." I stepped from behind a monument, rifle down but ready. "You picked the wrong tombstones." He smiled slightly. "You've caused a storm across every secure server in the country. Leaks, anonymized message drops, panic burning through departments. You think you're saving the truth, but all you've done is hand enemies our playbook. What you call defense," I said, "was murder in uniform." He tilted his head, intrigued. "And you? You've killed as many as I have. The difference is paperwork." The arrogance rolled off him like smoke. He thought charm was armor. I held up Mason's chip. "This holds every ledger, every stolen shipment, every payoff, including yours, Director Ransom. The world sees this, and you don't walk free again." He laughed quietly. "You're bluffing. Mason's dead, and no one knows this meeting exists." I dropped the small transmitter beside the grave, its blue light blinking to life. "Then explain the live upload running now. You're on record." He looked around, jaw tightening. "You'll die before that file finishes transmitting." "Maybe," I said, "but then your face finishes it for me." Hands moved, his team spreading, rifles raising. I ducked as flashes erupted. The first volley cracked against stone, sparks flying. Lila crawled behind the nearest marker, covering her head. I rolled to the left, returned 2 precise shots, breaking their formation. Flash charges ignited, turning the graveyard into a strobe of chaos. Men shouted, stumbling through mud. Every echo fed panic. I raced toward the oak, reloading blind by instinct. "Walker," Ransom shouted. "You think anyone will believe a killer's story?" I caught his outline near the SUVs. Through lightning gray light, I aimed low and fired. Tire burst, metal slamming. He ducked behind the door. The remaining guards regrouped, pushing forward. One flanked, firing too close. Dirt sprayed my arm. Pain flared, but I held steady, drew the combat knife, and when he rounded the grave, I let silence do what noise couldn't. Quick, clean, done. Lila screamed something behind me. Turning, I saw her running toward the transmitter. One of the agents had spotted it, gun drawn. She tackled him from behind. The shot went wild. I crossed the gap fast, hitting the man hard enough to drop him. Ransom fired once, bullet grazing my shoulder. I staggered, but clarity burned deeper than pain. I raised my sidearm, aimed, but he was gone behind the haze, using his men like shadows. He thought he had control again. Then the blue light on the transmitter blinked red. Upload nearly complete. "Too late," I said, loud enough for him to hear. Ransom emerged near my son's grave, gun in hand, face twisted not in fear but pride. "You think exposure means justice? Files get buried again. Truth dies in bureaucracy. Not tonight." I fired. The bullet hit his gun clean, spinning it from his grip. He stared at his bleeding hand, like something sacred had been spoiled. "Look around," I said. "Every grave here represents someone who thought they were fighting for what's right. You used them as product." He straightened, even bleeding. "And what are you now? Hero? Executioner?" "Both." Footsteps crunched behind me. Lila approaching, eyes wet, voice trembling. "Don't, Grant. Let the truth be enough." For once, I hesitated. The rain started again, soft, cold, constant. Ransom looked almost human for that half second, clutching his hand, breathing heavy. Then he said it. "You can't save your son by killing me." That sentence ended whatever line I had left. I swung once, just enough to crack bone with the rifle stock, dropping him to his knees. He coughed blood, glaring up with that bureaucratic certainty that men like him never truly lose. "The file's live," I said. "You're already erased." He spat mud. "They'll replace me. They can try." Behind me, the transmitter beeped twice. "Upload complete." A small message flashed on the screen. "Transfer successful. Public node activated." It was done. Every secret, every death, every payoff, now in the open. Ransom lunged weakly, trying for the fallen pistol. I kicked it away. He fell forward, chest heaving, surrender stripped out of him. Lila looked down at him, whispering, "It's over." I shook my head. "Not yet." From the corner of my eye, movement. Another guard still alive, aiming from behind a car. But before he could fire, a single shot cracked from the tree line and dropped him. I turned, eyes narrowing. No one visible, just smoke fading between oaks. Ghosts watching, maybe, or Mason's final echo following its own code. I crouched by the grave, laying the chip beside the stone. "You have your truth now, kid," I whispered, "and everyone who took it from you finally has theirs." Lila knelt beside me. "What happens to us now?" "We disappear," I said. "Let the world handle what comes next." She wiped rain from her eyes. "Do you even know how to start over?" I stared at the sky turning silver with dawn. "No, but I'll learn." Far in the distance, sirens grew, different this time, official, maybe clean. I stood, checked my weapon once more, then helped her up. "Where do we go?" she asked. "Home," I said, whatever that means now. We walked past the burning SUVs, stepping through steam and smoke. The sound of fire mixed with gulls from the nearby coast. Ransom coughed once behind us, trying to speak, but I didn't turn. Some ghosts aren't worth listening to. As we reached the gate, a breeze tore through the oak branches. For the first time in years, it didn't sound like war, just wind. Morning light drifted across the headstones, soft and golden instead of gray for the first time in months. The war inside me finally sounded quiet. Ransom was gone. The files were online, and the world could no longer pretend not to know. Lila stood a few feet back, arms folded against the cold wind. "They confirmed it," she said. "Every major network. The leaks are everywhere. They're calling it the Phantom Scandal." I nodded slowly. "Good. Let the truth walk on its own this time." She smiled faintly. "What will you do now?" I looked at my son's grave. "I don't really know. I've lived as a soldier, a husband, a ghost. Maybe it's time to just live as a man who remembers." The ground was damp, the air sharp with pine. I placed my sealed coin beside his name, not out of pride but release. "You can rest now, kid." Dad finally kept the promise. For a long minute, I said nothing else. The quiet felt earned. Footsteps behind me. Lila whispered, "They'll write books about this, what you did." "I don't want a book," I said. "I want a life that doesn't need stories like mine." A small truck approached the gate, engine gentle, not threatening. The driver was an old veteran I barely remembered from training, gray beard, calm smile. He stopped beside me. "You heading anywhere particular, Walker?" "Not yet." He nodded toward the open ridge. "Then ride along. There's work up north, rebuilding bases turned into schools. They could use steady hands." For the first time, the offer didn't sound like escape. It sounded like purpose. "Maybe I will." Lila looked at me carefully. "And me?" "You need to find peace in telling truth, not hiding from it." She nodded, understanding. "Thank you for not hating me forever." "I already wasted enough life on hate," I said quietly. The vet honked once. I turned back to the gravestone, traced my fingers across the engraved words, "Ethan Walker, forever courageous." I whispered, "You were braver than all of us." The sun climbed higher, lighting the oak tree with gold veins. The same branches that once moved to the rhythm of rain now glowed alive. The wind carried the faintest warmth, almost like a hand on my shoulder. Peace doesn't come with noise. It slips in when you finally stop expecting it. I walked to the truck, climbed in, and looked one last time at the graveyard shrinking in the mirror. Behind the glass, The fire of revenge faded into something quieter, dignity. Lila watched from the gate until we turned the corner and disappeared. And right there, between the silence and the sunrise, the story of a soldier, a father, and a ghost finally closed its chapter, not with vengeance, but with truth that refused to stay buried.